the final shift, so I'll try and make it interesting and keep you all engaged. I think from my perspective, yesterday I forgot to say where I'm actually from. My name is Bethan Gordon. I am from Cardiff School of Art and Design. And I'm a Dean of the School of Art and Design. And what that means is that the entire student and staff experience is completely my responsibility. But I was brought in quite a while ago, before I was Dean, in order to fix a few things. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be zooming out. So where we've seen innovation in the curriculum and innovative outcomes of good curriculum design, what I'm going to talk to is actually, if we zoom out ever so slightly, actually how can we create a holistic curriculum experience that enables for that innovation to happen? And then the innovation almost becomes a byproduct of good curriculum design. So I'm going to share some insight around my experience, and then very briefly I'll share a little bit of insight about the work that I've done with government and how I'm influencing education of children from the age of 4 to 16. Because as a classic designer, you do that thing that we can always do it better, because you're all sat there going, we can always do that better. And so what do? You infiltrate the places where you think you can do it better, and then you realize how hard it is, and you work with them. So that's a little bit of what I'm going to be talking about. But what I do is, and because in Wales, in the new curriculum for children aged 4 to 16, they have put in that creativity and innovation and entrepreneurism, they all have to be taught. And what's happened is the teachers have turned around and said, we don't know what these things, we know what they are, but they all seem like they're the same thing. So I thought I'd start with definitions, and it's almost ironic the definitions are almost hidden, so you can't actually argue with me. But I thought, well, actually, I'll pull up the definitions that I use there, and even though they're very, very small, so creativity, see if you agree, is the generation of new ideas. It's that spark of lots of different ideas that pivot off lots of things that we see, and it's new ways of looking at existing problems. Innovation is the successful exploitation of new ideas, the generation of value for the world, the world and how it impacts the world. So you need creativity in order to feed innovation. So when I look at curriculum design, I'm looking at how can I capitalize on creativity? How can I unlock creativity in order for innovation to follow? And then when we throw design in the mix as well. Well, what is design? Well, design is where you actually take creativity, and you take innovation and you package it in order for it to be accessible. So new ways of looking at how we do things, how we operate, and objects and items that we produce. Not always items, also systems, philosophies, policy, process. And then there's another one in there which you're completely missing, which is problem solving. And then it's really interesting when you add problem solving in the mix, because actually problem solving is a process. It's a process that we apply in all these areas in order to capitalize on them. So that was my take on the different terminology and how they belong together and the significance of them. But as every one of the speakers has said prior to me speaking, if we truly, we are all really cognizant and really aware of the environment that we're operating in and the environment that our students are operating in. And our students, they tell us they're worried, they're scared. And actually, as a Dean of a School of Art and Design, we're creating more objects, more stuff, and actually that can be a difficult one to think about as we've discussed today. So actually, how can we be socially responsible about the extra that we're creating and the value that we're creating? And for me, that is about how we go about our practice, and then to ensure that we're thinking about our future generations and that legacy that we leave behind. So this was a powerful statement. I'm slightly nervous now about how all the other slides are going to look. So here goes, and this will really test my memory. So then I got thinking, if I'm going to do this, by the way, I can talk, right? So make sure you keep me on track. Then I got thinking about, I am part of a School of Art and Design that completely did blank sheet its curriculum 12 years ago, and I will share those insights with you. Then I wanted to have a look at the design work that our design students created, even though I'm going to talk about other disciplines as well. I want to see, are they very different? So 10 years ago, and recently, you get these types of projects. So some of them if you're on an industrial design course, You will be familiar with some of these. You know that bone that always gets broken when they're playing football? The students always want to fix that problem. And the well-being is really topical, isn't it? And how plants, how they now, how you have to make the most out of your plants, look after your plants. And then we've got bio biscuits. So we create, the students have generated these bio products that you put in your plants in order to make sure that they last longer. And because then we've got better air quality. To prosthetics. And the one is quite sad, which is very current of now, which is the stabbings are really, in the UK, are a thing. They're a big rising issue that we deal with. So this student developed a product so that it went next to the defibrillators, so you can access them on the public streets. So actually it acts like a tourniquet. So somebody's been stabbed, you can instantly, in the public, you can actually access this and you can apply pressure to the wound. So these are really, they're very current of now. What's underneath these is the criticality of their thinking, the linking of theory and how it really has backed up where they're coming from, the choice of material and the legacy that they leave behind. So then I went back 10 years ago because I wanted to see, well, what were the design graduates producing 10 years ago? Is it that different? And they were still doing really socially responsible stuff. Interestingly, I taught on the programme 10 years ago. I don't teach on it now. I have PhD students and do different body of work. I think I was wrestling with, if we're producing more products, they've got to have a very clear purpose, and everything went medical as a consequence. Now, I'm not saying everything in design needs to be medical. That was actually my wrestle in my head, believe it or not, because I was heading up the course. However, the students produced some amazing work. They produced hip replacement tools, and they went and watched people doing surgery as well, and birthing tools, so you get a sensory measure of how much pressure you're applying on a baby's head when a child is being born, so they don't kill them. These are real issues that are being dealt with. Medication, so straws, so kids take medications, scooters, so students can take their shopping back from the shops. And some fun. There was a little bit more fun in the stuff than we're seeing now, and that's interesting, isn't it? And I think that's really important that we don't lose that fun and playing is actually really important to our curriculum, because it creates the space where actually we'll start having different ideas. Now, what was quite different about these sets of graduates is that they were very siloed in what they were doing. They produced amazing stuff. I'm not going to take that away from them. But they were very siloed in what they were doing, and they weren't necessarily collaborating well with others. We had to work really hard with them to get to collaborate with others. And Gareth worked with me when we were doing these projects as well. And we had to work really hard with these students to look beyond their experiences. So it got me thinking. So the world's changing, it's rapidly changing, and you'll be familiar with this quote. And we're preparing students ultimately where 65% of the jobs, in 10 years' time don't exist. So this is a quote that an American senator has quoted and the British Council have quoted. That's really hard for us, isn't it? So we're all designing curriculums for jobs and for innovation and opportunities that actually we don't know what they are. So that gets me thinking, as somebody who's in charge of curriculum, then what are we doing? Well, we're building resilience and confidence, and I think this word might be my own, learnability. I don't know if it is actually a word. It might be my own word. But actually, I think it's really important that what we do is we equip our students to be lifelong learners, because no matter what comes over the horizon, they're able to adapt to it. And actually, that's something that we found in the workshop that we were talking this morning, that you're meant to create a space, because in 5 years' time, we're going to have other critical emergencies. In 10 years' time, we're going to have different ones. We'll still have the climate emergency, but there'll be other ones on the horizon. And our students have to be ready that when they're working in industry, developing their own stuff or working with others, that they're able to adapt to that. So how do you do it? That's what you're asking. I'm posing lots of challenges. So what has changed? So in the School of Art and Design, as I mentioned, we completely blank sheeted the curriculum, and we have got, I'll give you some context, we've got 1,200 students, and we go from fine art to architecture, to textile design, to graphic design, product design, animation, game art. We've got a plethora of programs, and I'm talking quite specifically about undergraduate. I've got about 100 staff that work in the school, from technical demonstrators to academics. And and professors in and amongst them. Research is really important to us. Impact of our research is really important because that is actually what makes our curriculum rich. The research of our academics, the interests of our academics is actually really what shapes the curriculum and offers the innovation and the different points to our students. So what we developed in the School of Art and Design, in Cardiff School of Art and Design, was a curriculum framework. Because we're all talking about curriculum and everyone gets a bit confused. So curriculum is actually the nuts and bolts, isn't it, of the learning experience, the actual detail that you put into it. But the actual framework, the overarching space that you create that enables innovation, actually, that's the important bit. Because your curriculum can change with the times, but your framework, if it's designed well, will be really robust. And then actually what we've designed is a curriculum experience. And as a designer, we think about the students and their experience through this curriculum. And that's really important to us. From the psychology of the learner, how they navigate, how they work with others. They're all experiences. And that's what we do best. So we've applied that to how we've actually designed our curriculum. So this is what it looks like. So it was really interesting. Sorry about the colours. It was really interesting. And I'll give a bit more context. It was interesting watching all the diagrams that were flying around this morning because I sat there saying nothing because I was like, I have a diagram already that we work to. So what's fundamental about this curriculum? It's predicated on the medical design approach, so how they train medics, which is you go in as a generalist and then you specialise. So we are developing designers, artists, textiles designers, and they all want to be known as a textile designer or a product designer. And we're saying that's really important. It's important to us as well. But actually, we're going to develop a holistic experience where you collide, you come together, and you have an interdisciplinary curriculum experience. Okay, because they do work in teams on one or two of the projects, but actually it's very much about they navigate it individually alongside others, working with others, but always return back to their discipline. And that's how you keep them really grounded in their roots, so they don't lose their identity. Now, with time, that might start naturally eroding, who knows, and I'm open for that discussion. So we ground them in their subject. You are a product designer, you are a graphic designer, you have come in. We make them, in order for this to work and for them to work well with others, you have to make them feel confident. So you have to help them understand what it means to be in that discipline. Because what we learned very quickly is if you brought them in as a graphic designer or a product designer or an architect or a fine artist, and you said, day one, fine artist, you're going to collaborate with the architects. We had utter meltdown to the point where it was impacting on the students' mental health because they were like, why are we here? What's the purpose? What's the meaning of this? I thought I was a fine artist. And you had the fine artists thinking that they were at the top of their food chain, and you had the architects thinking they were at the top of their food chain. And before you knew it, it was actually gently unraveling. So we were like, gosh, there's something not quite right here, but we know it's right, but there's some work we've got to do before in order to help this. So you've got your subject. Then you've got field. Field is about literally a play space. It's where students collaborate, and collaboration is the key to our framework, where they come together, we collapse everything, and they come together in different modules. In the first year, it is very much about teaching them how to collaborate and how to work with each other, and we give them a theme. And in the second year, we give them choice. And we give them choice that they may want to go and set up their own business. They may want to go and practice as a teacher. They may want to innovate on a very particular design project, or they may want to go to Rajasthan and actually experience the culture in Rajasthan and then reflect on how it impacts on their practice. We also now have changed it up, so we've got 21st global challenges in there as well. So that is very much specifically the theme that we've situated this in. And then you've got constellation, this other component. And now this is not the theory piece. This is the critical piece. This is where we join the theory and the practice, and where actually it permeates their thinking. Why is that important? And this is where we have all those socially responsible questions. Why did you do it? For what purpose? What's the bigger question here? Where they take on the metaverse, anything and everything, masculinity, you name it, and it's always in the context of the discipline that they've come in, and they always navigate it in the context of the discipline they've come in. And then to top off that choice, we say to them at the beginning, think about whether you want to be an academic, do you want to be a practitioner, or do you want to be an entrepreneur? I nearly forgot the third one. Do you want to be an entrepreneur? And we'll say, what we'll do is we won't force you into those avenues. We'll give you those choices. But what we'll do along the way is we'll create educational experiences that you can opt into. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, we will create a space that actually enables you to set up a business, or we'll create a space for you to develop a business in your third year and refine it. If you want to be an academic, then we will actually have some really philosophical types of study groups that you can explore. And at the end of your final year, you can publish your work. But if you want to be a practitioner, then that, skill and physicality is so important to us as a school in art and design. You can navigate that route. But if you change your mind, that is absolutely fine too. We do not constrain them to a route. It's very much their path that they're navigating. So these are three components, and they are literally in 3 modules. So if I just do a real whistle-stop tour of the lessons learnt piece. So in 2012, we blank sheeted it. It was not easy. The fine art team, and I'm on about the staff, because actually when there's change afoot, it is frightening. And I headed up design, and I'll be honest with you, I was one of the ones that was going, there's no way you're taking my subject apart and getting your hands on this, But then I was made head of design, and then I was made head of undergraduate studies, probably on purpose, so I could actually had to sort it. But it was a difficult piece because everybody had to undo the way they were thinking in order to realize there was a better way of doing it. And the better way of doing it is because we wanted our students to collaborate. We wanted them to be cognizant of being good leaders, and we wanted to really make the most of their creativity. And how you do that is by experiencing the world through the eyes of other people. And you only truly understand what you offer your discipline when you look at a fine artist. As a designer, I like milestones. I like an action plan. I like to know where I'm going. I like to talk to people, observe it. A fine artist, they go and study the world around them. They take it from their viewpoint, but they actually play through experimenting for so long. But there's so much good in that experimentation that designers could benefit from. And they're the connections that are really rich that you get in a curriculum where you create these colliding spots and the students come together. So we blank sheeted it and we said we're going to build a curriculum that's got risk built into it, because in order to be creative, you've got to take risks. We're going to have colliding spots so all the different disciplines collaborate and they all do come together. And then we're going to do it in such a way that you retain that sense of belonging in your discipline. So it was a tall order, and it was a bit of a pickle in the first few years. And that's when they brought me in, because the idea was a beautiful one, but the reality is something else. And there's lots of logistics, lots of frameworks that have to be put in place. And I've got a little bit of a lessons learnt bit. In 2017, I looked at it and I was like, hang on a minute. If we're building risk, then how are we actually building risk? We had formative assessments. Have you heard of formative assessments? So, you do them so they actually get feedback. Well, our students just weren't doing them, so they weren't getting the feedback, so they weren't taking the risks. And what we saw was a decline in the work. The quality of the work went down. So I brought in pass-fail. So there's no grade. Don't chase it. But actually now take a risk. Take a risk in your creative practice. So I created this space where they had to engage. I forced engagement. Not ideal, I know, but we're in an education system, so we've got to play the game. But I enabled them to take creative risks. And then the other thing I looked at was actually, and this is off a bit of work that Gareth was doing, I looked at how long the modules should be, because we had too much procrastination and not enough engagement. And actually the fine artists liked the procrastination, but the designers were going mad on it. So actually, as you can all imagine, so actually we needed to look at what's the optimum length of a project where they don't actually meander for so long, they produce nothing worthwhile. So where do you get the perfect amount of boredom, the perfect amount of performance, and the perfect amount of stress? And actually it was about making them a little bit smaller. But we did it in such a way that the design disciplines could actually do their smaller projects in them, and the fine artists, the art and illustration teams could actually group 2 modules together and make it a longer one. So we allowed agility, and agility in a framework is really important. The other thing I did, and that was linked to the psychology of the learner. So it was all about watching and understanding the learners as an artist and as a designer, and truly understanding the psychology of their learning experience. And I'm not on about whether they're a tactile learner, or I'm literally on about what motivates them, what demotivates them, what stresses them out, what causes them their creative blocks, and actually what can we put into our curriculum to unlock those. And then in 2024, recently, we've got this really steady ship, this really rich and innovative, it is an innovative curriculum that actually creates an awful lot of innovation out of the students' work. We get a number of awards from the work that's created. We were like, actually, we want to be a future generation school. So actually, what I learnt was, so it was a mess, sort the mess out, understand the learners and the psychology. And then we were saying we're doing a curriculum that allows you to take risks, and we're doing, doing a curriculum that allows you to collaborate and allows you to lead. But had we actually told the students what those things require? And we hadn't actually said, in order to collaborate, here are some rules of engagement. These are the things that you've got to be aware of. And in order to take risks, you've got to understand your creativity and actually how creativity works. And believe it or not, there is a process and you can capitalize on it. So actually, what we've brought in now is cognizance. So we're actually ensuring that the students are cognizant of so they know how to collaborate. They know how they are creative, and they know what leadership involves of oneself and of others. And then all underpinned by this beautiful carbon literacy framework. Has anyone heard those terms before? So we worked with the Royal College of Engineering and we've developed, now in design, we've all been very sustainably minded. At least it's been on our mind for at least 15 years, hasn't it? 15, maybe 20 years, I remember talking about it. But what I found was that other programs weren't necessarily as up to speed. You know, if you take ceramics, for instance, ceramics use metals in their glazes. They fire gas and electric kiln, well, gas kilns, they off-gas some terrible stuff. If you think about the paint that goes into a fine artist, you think about the metals that come out of the photography practice, the dyes that go into textiles, the waste that we produce in product. In fact, I'm not going to carry on because we'll all start being really depressed about it. But actually, what we've developed, and this is an initiative of my colleague, I can't take credit of this being my bit of work. He worked to develop a framework that is developing our students to be literate in the outcome of their work. So it's future literacies is what we're calling it, but it was based on carbon literacies. So actually, as every discipline now in their entire curriculum experience, this framework underpins everything they do. And the work that's come of it, we've got a natural dye garden. Now that we grow the stuff, the students grow it, and we've got a research group around it. That now feeds into one of our field projects, so the students actually use it and interact with it, and they are developing the dyes themselves. But we're also looking at how you water the dye garden, and then we look at the metals that are in the photography wastewater, and we're looking at actually how do you take the metal out of the photography wastewater and use the wastewater to feed the dye garden that then feeds the student. So what we're doing is we're trying to really think about the whole process so we can carry on and contribute in terms of art and design, but actually we do it from a socially responsible perspective. So that's a new initiative now. And we call ourselves a Future Generation School of Art and Design. That's what we're calling ourselves. So I've talked through a lot of these, the enablers. And these things, I won't spend too long if I've already mentioned them. So in order to capitalize and to really help our students be creative, you have to really ground them in their discipline. So you ground them in their discipline, otherwise you destabilize them. And what we noticed very early on is that grades and retention and engagement and creativity was being impacted because we were not grounding them in their discipline. And we shouldn't be afraid of that. Even working with others is incredibly powerful, but you have to recognize what you're bringing to that party and you've got to be confident. Taking creative risks. How can you do that in the bureaucratic system? The one way that I found that we could do that was by actually taking out grade chasing and putting pass-fail in. It wasn't easy, and I still get kickback now, and I say, no, this is based on the psychology of the learner. This is important to our learners, and I know the art and design learners. That's the difficulty of a bureaucratic system that we all work in. So design doesn't happen in a vacuum. You know, we all go on about this to our students. You know, don't design in your own vacuum for you on behalf of somebody else. That's not how it rolls. So it's really important that their educational experiences do not happen in a vacuum as well, and that we create space, and that's what our curriculum does. Colliding spaces, there's got to be room for them to collide with other disciplines, because only then do they truly learn different viewpoints. Can they then actually work collectively on projects? But even if they just in a multidisciplinary way, they sit next to each other and work and learn. And cognizance of the obvious, you know, don't expect them to understand how they're creative. That's one of the most dangerous things that we do. Actually, we've got to help them understand the creative process. And only then can you help them understand how they generate ideas, how they tap into their creative position, and how they capitalize on that in order for them to be innovative. And this is the big one, reflection. So when we brought this framework out, reflection was in there, and nobody quite understood why it was important. Until we realized that actually if the students are not reflecting on their practice with others and the significance of that other viewpoint and how it makes them better and stronger in their discipline and what they're doing, then actually it all starts eroding and they start questioning for what purpose, why are we here? So the reflection was really powerful, and the one bit that we've had to make sure that it stays in. So they're constantly reflecting. What we're seeing is the level of criticality in the student work is unreal, the things that they're challenging. And in fact, I will add it to my slides. I've got podcasts of our students' technical work and their dissertation work, and they're amazing, the things that they're discussing. So I'll add them in there and you can all listen in your own time. So the working environment, I didn't put staff at the top of here, but here are some of the things that were challenges that we worked with. So you've got to change culture before framework. That's so important. You know, if you want to have a culture where everyone works together, you've got to set that up. You can't change the framework and then say, by the way, everyone, you're all going to work together. That's staff and students. So we developed communities of practice, because once you tell a school we're changing everything, they sit there and your colleagues go, right, you tell us how we're changing it. And when you say we're changing it to interdisciplinary curriculum experience, what do you mean by that? And we had to change that narrative. No, you develop the definitions of what that means to you in your disciplines from your perspective. And that's taken a good couple of years, where you actually get these communities of practice where they collectively start owning that curriculum piece that happens, that detailed piece within it. Otherwise, you disempower your teams accidentally. I'm a really big fan of on-your-feet meetings. On-your-feet meetings, flip chart paper, big pens, and maybe it says more about me. So we did a lot. When we were working through the planning of this and the detail of this, I was like, right, everyone on your feet, let's get the flip chart paper, let's get the pens. I don't do it so much now, because when you're the dean, they get a bit scared when you show up. But generally, that's exactly how I did my meetings and how we do a lot of our all-school meetings now, because that's where a lot of creativity happens in the curriculum, you know, the detailed design work from a staff perspective. Using accessible language. So whenever you develop anything that's going broader than your own discipline, if I use design thinking, my artists, they switch off. I see it straight away. So if I use creative thinking, then they're all listening. So it's really interesting. Very quickly, I learned that you've got to change your language so you actually tap into all the people around the table. Otherwise, people switch off and you've lost them. That's the one that I could just think of. So now I use creative thinking. And it's all the same stuff. It's just different words, isn't it? But it's very important to a lot of people. Turning a ship, right? I had to take advice on this. I don't think I'll be much longer. Apologies, because I'm still talking. When you do something on this scale, it involves everybody being with you and everybody delivering at the same time. You've got a whole school that's running modules that run across the whole school. You've all got to be in this together. And I found staff were missing deadlines, not producing stuff. And I went and took advice. Why? Why are they missing the deadlines? You know, why? And I said, well, they're either too busy or you're asking them to turn the ship. I was like, right. I said, actually, I think they're very busy. I don't think they're too busy. I think they're very busy. I said, but yeah, I'm asking them to turn a ship. You know, every time you start a new job, it's like turning a ship. And he said, well, actually, it's really hard to turn a ship, but if you get them to ride on momentum, they'll start engaging. So everything I do now in the school, every new initiative, everything that needs to be started, I always ensure that the staff are riding on momentum. It's already been initiated, the seeds have been set, the ground rules are, it sounds like I'm I control it all. I don't mean that. I mean, and it's not always me, I mean that actually they're never starting from an empty space where they're turning an entire ship. They're always starting with something, and that's really powerful. And instantly the engagement changed. So it was obviously, and I get it now, it's a new job. You're like, oh, put that job off because it's a brand new one. So it's that whole psychology. I always seed change. I seed change. And that's where you start conversations really early on, because if it's a shocker, instantly nobody wants to know and nobody wants to engage, because this is about actually bringing people with you, isn't it? Because we're talking about working with other disciplines and we're talking about maximizing our curriculum, but actually you've got to seed that change so it's no shock. And I always say this, if we feel like we're wading through treacle, did we create the treacle? And if we did, let's stop. Quite often in academia, everyone spends a long time discussing what's really hard till you realize we've created the bit that was really hard and we can uncreate it. So I'm a really big advocate of, hang on a minute, didn't we just create that mess? Let's just unpick it all. And then very quickly, I've been working with Welsh Government, where Welsh Government have changed a brand new curriculum across ages 4 to 16. I was involved in some of the writing workshops as a guest speaker, and I head up a project on behalf of Cardiff Metropolitan University where I support teachers to be inquirers, because basically they said to teachers, here's a new curriculum framework, design your new curriculum, but what the teachers didn't necessarily feel comfortable or confident in doing is that whole new design curriculum piece. It's been such a big job, and we're still going through it now. In it, they've put creativity and innovation in the heart of it. And I, as a designer, what I've done is I have brought in, well, inquiry is a form of research, so it's a tool to help them develop new content. And I've linked it into design thinking, as in they're solving their itch rather than a problem. There's always an itch that needs to be scratched. What is your itch? And I'm helping them by developing those tools around sort of creative thinking and inquiry, and doing that on a mass scale across Wales. And that's another project, but it's just another idea of how you change something so fundamental to what we're used to. It's really important, and this is what the Welsh Government have done well, that you support the staff in that, and that you actually help them unpick what that means, and you create a space for that. And that's the bit of work that I'm doing here. So I've almost finished and ready for the workshops. So for me, I haven't necessarily spoken about specific projects or innovative projects, and of which there are a plethora that I've seen come out of this that are fantastic. But for me, we create spaces for our students to be innovative, and that's really important to me. So my question is it innovative curriculum, or do we design learning experiences that enable innovation? Or is it both? But we're not going to answer this now. That's just me putting poising a question. So, workshops. Would you like to ask any questions before I go into the workshops, or go for it?
You mentioned about design thinking, and the term sometimes put people off. How about the word innovation? Does anybody go like, ooh, that's not something for me?
Do you know what? I think it's a case of we don't always have to use the words and point it out. So I think the design courses will naturally find that they're being innovative and are very comfortable using that terminology. And our artists, it's about their contribution to society, the changes, the stories that they're telling. But in it, quite often, there is innovation in what they're doing and in their practices, but you just let them use their terminology. So for me, it's more about we've got to create the space to enable our students to be as creative as they possibly can and not to hinder it. And from that, innovation will follow.
I do not have a question, just a remark. I learned something in Berkeley I love a lot. It was an entrepreneurship class, and the students have to present their progress every week. And so the teams presented the progress every week, and the other students had to comment and help and support. So what was good and why? How can it improve and why? And the team voted how insightful and helpful the reflection was. And there was always a ranking. So there's a kind of public pride that you are a good reflectioner. And the grading was on the learning journey. So because I was in entrepreneurship, you never know if your idea works out or not. You cannot make the assessment based, oh, they had a successful startup or not. You can just have bad luck, right? And so at the end, they presented their learning journey. So I think there is a good is a beauty in just pass and not pass, but there is also a beauty to have to have grades, and that it's really about how reflective it is. And I'm doing that. My teams are presenting their project, but also their learning journey. And in the learning journey, I have two criteria: the depth of the reflection and how entertaining the learning journey is. And to be honest, it's so much fun to listen to them.
I just wanted to thank you for this absolutely amazing presentation. And I'm a bit sad that I'm too old to do my bachelor's at your school, but I would absolutely come. And I've been developing curriculums for the last 15 years, and I had a couple of ahas with your presentation. Thank you. It was brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. I did bring the prospectus with a bit more detail. I bought two of them, so if anyone wanted to read the detail of how you get that disciplinarity in an interdisciplinary curriculum experience space, I accidentally picked up a Welsh one. So I've got one Welsh one English one, but I have got a couple that I've got one that I'll leave and you can have a look through, but you might want to leave it so other people can look, and if you've got Google Translate, you can look at the Welsh one. So yeah, and because I speak Welsh, I didn't realise I picked up a Welsh one until I was talking to someone and it was in Welsh. Anyway, the workshops. So I'm going to do a little thing premised around the principles of the thinking organisation. Has anyone heard of the thinking organisation principles? I'm not sure if it's, I don't think it's a new thing. 1998, Nancy Klein developed it. It's, to me, it's about the depth of thinking, that's what Nancy Klein said, and about the consideration we give to others when we're listening to their thoughts and observations. To me, it's about active listening, actually, rather than the thinking. So what I've done is I've got a couple of tasks I want you to do, but I'm going to give you a framework to do them in. I don't always framework everything, I promise. Right? So I'm going to give you some rules of engagement that are on the next slide, which are premised around the thinking organisation rules of engagement on how to actually generate different viewpoints. The reason why I've done the first one is think as the innovation in what you currently do. I want you to actually, because when anyone talks about change, the first thing that happens is everything that you've done before becomes a dirty word. And I don't think that's healthy, because actually that then really means that we start hiding things when we try and shoehorn them back into the new stuff. I think we should celebrate the bits that we've done before that were really good, put them back on the table, and actually let's look at how we can do them differently. So I'm not going to make the past the dirty word. I'm going to make it a positive thing for the future. So what I'd like you to do, your first task, is literally, you're going to talk and you're going to say, actually, the innovation in what you currently do. And even if you don't work in education, but you've seen innovation in other spaces, you can talk to that. But here are the rules of engagement. Are you ready? Okay. So you're going to be in groups. Oh, I said no, ignore the lesson 6 bit, okay? Just go into your groups, okay? Go into groups. What you're going to do is you're going to nominate one note taker and you're going to have one facilitator, okay? Each person has 30 seconds to speak, so the facilitator is going to time you, okay? You've got 30 seconds to speak uninterrupted on the innovation that the good bits that you've currently got in your experience. The facilitator is going to then say the next person. If the next person hasn't got anything to say at that moment, they can pass once and they come back to at the end, okay? And then a discussion can be held at the end, okay? And then ultimately, so the note taker is going to collect everyone's viewpoints. So we're going to get a bank of information and everyone's going to get a voice. Now, I've done this a couple of times. I've been a participant with lots of different people from different backgrounds, and everyone was very well behaved. I did it in the School of Art and Design with a whole load of creatives, and they couldn't shut up. So it's really interesting how the creatives in us are desperate to get our viewpoint over, but the rules are really simple. It's one person's 30 seconds, you're all actively thinking and listening. And when they finished, you don't get to speak. The person sat next to them gets to speak. So that's the first task. The next task, I love this. So there's so Dave Brailsford was brought in as part of the British Cycling Olympic team about 10 years ago. Don't know if you've heard of him, but it's when the British cycling team was doing really well in the Olympics. And he basically came in with the marginal gains concept, which is we're going to look at everything we do and we're going to make 1% enhancement in everything that we do. And because then if you make one, so he did it from the bikes to the helmets, to the weight of the clothes, to the diet that they're eating, just 1% in all those different things. And actually what you get is an accumulative effect and you get improved performance. So from your notes, how can you implement 1% innovation enhancement in what you do? Okay, or have heard. Collect your ideas and vote for your favorites. Okay, so that's going to be, and then there's a third one. You ready for this? I hope you're all on track. So revisit, right? So what you did with Gareth this morning, revisit what you've done with Gareth. Now you've talked about what you've done. You've looked at 1% enhancements on what you currently do. Right, go back to that blank sheet that you did with Gareth this morning. It doesn't matter if you mix up your groups, but actually visualize your optimum learning journey with colliding spots with other disciplines. And you can apply marginal gains if you want, but actually revisit the stuff you did with Gareth this morning based on what I've said and actually see if there's anything that you would change up with it now. Thanks.
Seconds innovations. So a porcelain project from Klaus, who is have a wider focus for his faculty. And here is a workshop to develop your personality from Tom. A textile project with textiles from Arvid. And our favorite is the last. And here from Daniel to stabilize the members of the university to get more students. And from Sabine, a TikTok channel she's developing with a collaboration with the city of Hildesheim. And what else? This is from me. We worked with an insurance company and developed a lot of problems by observing the employees. So it was really interesting. And the Tilo, this was really complicated. I think I can't repeat it anymore. Sorry. And the best, our favorite was from Birte, learn from the best. So this is our favorite 30 seconds. So it was very sportive and a fresh up.
Then we continued with 1%, and that became very alive because everybody was like, popping out. That was a lot of fun. 1%. Let's start with Sabine, Chaos. Her percentage is mehr Struktur, so more structure, getting better organized, because the students realize when you're totally in chaos. And very nicely, Karen added, I need more chaos, I'm totally organized. So you've got a team already. Then Arvid mentioned every student once per week. So every student should show up once per week. So make kind of continuum out of it, because he realized that some of them are just showing up every second week or just randomly. So he wants to enhance just their just fortkommen, so engagement and process. Then we have Thilo with a visualization. He has several projects, and for each project he has a table set up. And on each table there's one project, there's books for this project, next table, material for that project. So he's very organized and just knows exactly like where to continue with. So also kind of organization. So that's actually done. Then we have names. I'm very bad with names. And I have to learn names like vocabulary. And I also got some very helpful tips how to do that. So that's my enhancement. And maybe one more, which is one communication channel only. That is Tom. So skip all the different channels, get rid of them, only one.
Yeah, it's interesting because you talk to nuts and bolts, which are really important, because actually in order to get a framework that works, you need to create structures to allow chaos where creativity then follows. But all these things are towards student success, aren't they? And that's, yeah, that's important. Okay.
Thank you. Only 2 minutes, please.
All right. So since we did not manage to work on the third thing we should do, I should be able to do it in 2 minutes. So I quickly want to go through the innovations the team is currently or worked on. So yeah, this exhibition, actually the X Depot, is a very unusual space in a museum. It shows no hierarchy and no chronology, so therefore it's very innovative and a new format. Then we had somebody in the team that is writing a book about how to change the practice of fashion. It's my handwriting, this is why I have to present it, and I can hardly read it myself. Then we have somebody who established new studies without a room where teachers and students work with each other completely remotely. Then a matchmaking program between technical and art departments at a university that what enables the students to cook with hydrogen. And then, somebody who is working in entrepreneurship and who iterates their curriculum based on reflections, meaning, they build, measure, and learn, and every semester they, iterate it and do something new. And then a new course in cross-media production where the subject was John Lennon, and it's a collaboration between art and design. Did I get this right? Yeah, a research project between art and design, and somebody who puts human and planetary resources into the design of the development of AI projects. Somebody else want to present the 1%? Okay. And then, because we want to stay in time, we had a lot of very interesting 1% improvements, and we had actually one that exceeded the 1%, that was, focus 1 hour per day on getting better in something that you're interested in. And we thought, this is our most favorite one because, yeah, it sounds very good and more than 1% actually.
I'm trying to read your handwriting. So for the first task, René said, change perspective from teaching to learning. What do they need? Anna said, changing focus from
capabilities to skills, or from skills to competencies. I said, new business stream, a leadership training. Mel, Inspire Innovation for Design Leaders, PPP. Mariah, Regulatory Sandbox for Students. Mario is trying to innovate the way they're doing innovation. That really was an exciting one. We're trying to increase the impact in the foundation, and you're going from interdisciplinary to transdisciplinary.
Okay, now I try your handwriting. So then we did it a bit differently. We selected our favorite one from the first task. So we selected René's change perspective from teaching to learning. What do they need? And then we brainstormed a little bit and came out with a few bullet points. And yeah, I think you have to. I'm very sorry.
And at the end, we voted and to invite the students to design their learning experience by themselves would be the 1% method we would like the most. Thank you. That's it.